and start the record button and introduce our master teacher, Shift.Co mentor speaker today. He's talking about a couple of my favorite subjects, purpose and planning. And when I met Ray, I knew right away that we needed to have him as a master teacher on our platform. And he was one of the early master teachers. We have over 60 master teachers today. And we were so grateful that he joined us and serves his content to our members. He also joined us on our mentor team as well. So what I love about Ray's work, he's got an acronym that he'll introduce you to. In terms of the hard part, I believe, is bringing these disparate things like purpose and planning and purpose and profits together. And that's really what we struggle with as conscious entrepreneurs. And Ray's got a really phenomenal methodology. He calls it C.O.A.R, and I won't do it justice, but it really is clarifying your focus and whether your business is trying to change the world or trying to change something small in your community, you really need that focus. So that's going to be the C, organizing and prioritizing commitments. And I love the word commitment. And how do you actually organize them in a way that you can honor them? And then acting with conviction. Another thing I love about Ray's method, a lot of people sometimes when they get into planning, they forget the act part. And it's really about the plan. And so Ray's work is what I call very actionable. And then the last part, which is my favorite, is realizing success and fulfillment. And what I love about that is success is about the planning part, and fulfillment, I believe, is about the purpose part. So I'm going to turn it over to our master teacher, Shift.Co mentor, man of all seasons, Ray Madaghiele. Ray, it's all yours.
Well, thank you, Terry. Yeah, so I am excited to be here with all of you. And so I'm going to actually share some scientific tools as well as some metaphysical tools. They blend together so well. So first of all, I'd love to know how many of you, with a show of hands, how many of you with a show of hands have struggled a bit during the pandemic as we've been going through the past couple years? Anyone? I hope you have a hand up. If you were in virtual arena, maybe you didn't struggle as much. For me, before the pandemic, I was 90% in person with my services, the meeting facilitation, strategic planning, leadership training, all of that. Did some coaching on the internet. So I had a rude awakening. And what I did was I looked for what is it going to take for me to ramp up to master the virtual tools. And even when the pandemic started, the virtual tools weren't really good to duplicate what I do in person. And fortunately, they started ramping up, and then I started learning more and tried to learn a little bit about every platform. And then it got to a point where I was feeling more comfortable looking into a camera like right now. And it was just a process to go through. Fortunately, I had some strategic planning tools. I had some things on the back burner, like creating a learning management system so I could do online courses more, and almost done with that. So this past couple years has been about learning everything I need to do. And fortunately, I found Shift.Co back in February of last year and had some coaches. So Michelle was a great coach of mine to help me learn about demand generation and what I needed to do to have more of a presence online. My coaching with Terry has helped. And so this combination of my strategic planning tools and Shift.Co's tools has really helped me to get more conversant in the virtual language. Because even now, as I'm starting to book things in person again, I know it's still going to be a hybrid of virtual. So what I wanted to share with you today is some tools that I've learned as a project manager when I was doing engineering projects around strategic planning and how to get my plans in order and actionable. And then a combination of what I'm learning in Shift.Co as well. So with that, let's go ahead, and here's the objectives for today. So the first thing is, why does strategic planning work? And I wanted to share with you some principles I've learned. They're spiritual principles, but they're also scientific principles on why it does work as a process. And then what are the phases and elements of the planning process that you can go through step by step to determine, how are you going to reimagine your future as a business? And then how to focus your energy to attract what you want and really invoke the natural universal laws to do that. And as Terry mentioned, I'm going to share something that I discovered. And actually, I'm glad Bill Woodward's on the call, because Bill and I met over the process of about 6 months to really boil down what it is that I do. And that's where this core just bubbled up in that process that I went through with Bill. And then 5, this is a springboard to some courses that I've already got on ShiftCo. As Terry mentioned, I've got a Strategic Planning 101 and a 202 course, and it's in the core leadership fuel for those of you that are members of ShiftCo. So with that, let's dive into some universal scientific principles. So the law of conservation, it merely says energy can neither be created nor destroyed, merely transformed. And so we have control as beings to take this energy and mold it into something else. And I'll show you a demonstration in a little bit. But I used to be a long-range water planner in Salt River Project, which is a utility here in Arizona. And we had hydroelectric dams that actually generate power, as well as other types of generators. But I wanted to share about hydroelectric dams because I think it really is a great metaphor for what it is that we do. And so first of all, potential energy is when the water is lifting behind the dam. The higher the water gets behind the dam, the more potential energy there is to generate the electricity that we know about hydroelectric dams. And so once you release that water through the channel, it goes into a turbine. The turbine spins, turns a generator, which generates electricity that we all love to plug things into our home and to receive it and have it do work in different ways that we want to. And it's there that I want to share a highly technical training tool with you. And this will also invoke the law of cause and effect. So let's just see what we've got here. Highly technical training tool. We'll stop sharing here. So this is my first highly technical training tool. I constructed this myself from what I learned in high school. And I don't know if it's legal. If something happens and I get electrocuted here, can you make a call or something? So 911 is always a good thing to call. And so, yeah, so from that hydroelectric dam and from the generator and generating electricity, all we have to do is the magic of plugging into the wall, coming through this wire, we have light. Let there be light, they say. I look a little bit like, who's that guy? Little, I don't remember. Anyway, and so the electricity goes through here. And the interesting thing is we can regulate this electricity with a dimmer, which is just entering resistance into the wire. And you can either go less resistance or more resistance to bring it up brighter. And we have that control. And as we talk about strategic planning, I'm going to share that's very significant, because this resistance that we enter can actually dim the vision that we have, the passion that we've got, if we're not aware of how to control that. Another highly technical training tool. And so what's this? It's a magnet. If you don't know, this is a magnet. And so a magnet, an interesting thing about a magnet. So, it's got iron. So the interesting thing about the iron in a magnet versus the iron in your car, if there is still iron in cars, I don't know. But anyway, the difference is if you look under a microscope at the metal in the magnet, you'll see that the molecules are all aligned. It's almost like they're just lined up, and that creates power through magnetism because each of the molecules are end to end, and one side, so there's a positive and negative, right? In a magnet, you learn that, remember that, high school? Yeah. So there's a positive and negative pole. And so one pole has one less electron, the other pole has one more electron. And the interesting thing is that creates the power of magnetism. So like this. So these safety pins, they're all stuck together, but they weren't pinned together. They're magnetized as a result of coming in contact with one pole of this magnet. And that's exactly what can happen as we develop a strategic plan. We actually magnetize what it is that we want to attract more of those things that will fulfill it. And so let's take a look at that from a strategic planning standpoint. I love highly technical training tools, by the way. I used to be an engineer. That's just the way it works. So yeah, let there be light. And like attracts like. This is actually a natural law. It's the law of attraction. Like attracts like. And you might think, well, you've got opposite poles, a positive and a negative. But remember, it's just metal that's wanting to complete a circuit. Positive electron, negative electron. And also, you attract what you need for your transformation. So even though I didn't invite the pandemic caused me to actually take off the back burner this developing online training and get the skills that I needed to do that. So this thing that didn't look desirable in the beginning turned out to be a blessing in disguise. So let's talk about the power of the mind and how this all works. And so we've got the conscious, the subconscious, and the superconscious, which isn't talked about much, especially in business circles. But we're going to talk about it here because they all work together. So the conscious mind, it takes in everything that we're seeing in the world, so through our five senses, and we get to decide whether that's important information to use or not use. And so we put it in our short-term memory, and if it isn't useful, it just kind of drops out. Because there's a filtering system called the reticular activating system that actually filters out what isn't important and it lets in what is important, which is exactly why strategic planning works, is because it causes us to get really clear, and we'll go through C.O.A.R. so that you'll understand the steps, but it helps us to get clear on what it is that we want to open up that filter and let that in. And then the subconscious mind, this is where we store everything. This is where we store all the knowledge that we've gained. And I want to say a word. And as I say the word, I want you to share in the chat what's the first thing that comes to mind. You ready? Flag. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Country. Other things? Colors. Yeah, so it's interesting. We don't necessarily think FLAG, which is the word that I said, but pictures typically come up because that's how we store information in our brains, in our subconscious. We store in pictures. And with those pictures are attached feelings from whatever the circumstance was that triggered those pictures. And it's also where we store habits, which are just efficient ways of doing things. So you probably don't even remember if you brushed your teeth this morning. You probably did, but it's automatic. Or putting on your makeup, you don't have to think about it anymore. And it's just because we and our subconscious create highly efficient ways of doing things. And then beliefs are only habits of thinking. And so that's the conscious and subconscious, not a superconscious mind. This is where inspiration from source energy comes up. This is where these solutions to problems maybe we've been wrestling with just bubble up, or maybe this creative idea. whatever it was that had that idea for you to start a business probably came from your superconscious mind saying it was ready. So let's share a little bit about what it takes to be a creator versus a reactor. And this is all choice. When we can control our thinking so that we take ownership of whatever's going on in our world, problems we might be facing, obstacles that are occurring, when we can turn those into goals as a creator, makes all the difference in the world. And then reactors, when we're feeling like a reactor, that's when we're feeling victimized, like things are out of our control. And so the trick is, how do we feel more like a creator than a reactor? And that's where strategic planning is really a valuable tool to use. And so here's Strengthen Your C.O.A.R. And so I say, strengthen your core to achieve more. And at the heart of any achievement is the spark of desire. That's what ignites it. And as all the things that I've done as an engineer, as a project manager, we're all pointing to the simplicity of what it takes to take an idea and actually have it to realize itself into the world. And so we're going to go through this step-by-step process so you understand and why it's important to go through the steps and not jump to, say, from clarify to act. Let's talk a little bit more about what this model actually helps us to create. So phase one is clarify. And so in clarify, this is the imagination at work. This is where we might have gotten that idea bubbling up from the superconscious that said, you know, here's a business that I really feel I need to do. And I'm going to put it out there that this is what I'm going to do. And so in essence, it's asking the universe, it's asking source, what it is that I want. And the clearer I can get on that, then the clearer that message is going to go out there. The magnetic field will radiate from there. And that's what those natural laws are all about. And so we're going to go through the elements that help us to clarify in a strategic plan: the purpose, the values, and the mission. So let's take a look at purpose first. So core purpose. And there's a great book, it's by Jim Collins and Jerry Porras, that's called Built to Last. It was written in the 90s. It's still relevant today, because what they did is they studied companies that lasted 50 years, many of them over 100 years, that were they were benchmarks in their industry. And these particular companies really had things in common. And the first thing they had in common was a core purpose. And core purpose answers the question, why does your organization exist? Why are you here? And so I want you in the chat, whatever comes to your heart, put that in the chat as far as what you feel the purpose of your company is. And it was probably the thing that gave you goosebumps when you decided you're going to start that organization. So put in the chat, what is that core purpose that's at the heart of everything that you do? And so for me, you want an example? I'll give you an example. So Disney's core purpose is, any idea? Bring happiness to millions. That was the essential purpose, that everything that Disney has done, that's at the heart of it. For me, it's inspiring hope and awakening greatness. What is it for you in your business? Healing. Inspire potential. Going once, going twice. Make positive change. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's good to know that. Because when we can have that be at the heart of everything we choose to take on, it makes a huge difference in how we feel about our company, the fulfillment we're getting out of it, and the success that the organization is manifesting. The second thing that's important for clarifying is core values. And so core values, these are essential enduring tenets, guiding principles that, in essence, they let customers know what it is that we choose to stand for. And so when we're very clear on these values and we can integrate them into everything that we do, it's there that people will understand what it is that we're all about as an organization. And other ways to mention this, and I'm going to let us do a little bit of whiteboarding. And so we'll teach you how to do it. First of all, let me stop sharing. So as I facilitate this in organizations, and I facilitate it with any organization I'm in that wants to do a strategic plan, it's important that they know what their values is. So SCHIFCO has a very clear set of values, our company does. And when you've got those principles that you can live by, then people really know what it's going to be like working for your organization, as well as being a customer for your organization. So I've got a couple questions up here that asks it in a little different way, and I find it gets at the heart of it. And so how do you like to be treated is one, and then another perspective is how do your customers like to be treated? So if you haven't used whiteboarding before, go ahead and move your cursor up to the top of your screen. You should see a menu that drops down. You'll see more options as a selection, select that. And then you'll see in the drop down, I think that fourth down, it's something that says annotations. Annotate, go ahead and click on that and you get a menu that shows up. And on that menu, second from the left, you'll see text. Go ahead and click text and then click anywhere in the white space on the whiteboard and then type in what it is that you're thinking of that answers the question, how do you like to be treated? And then as soon as you're done typing, click outside the textbook onto the white surface, and there we go. So respect, kindly. You can answer any one of those questions. How do you like to be treated? Or how do your customers like to be treated? Yep, would like to be treated well. Yeah, what does well look like? Put yourself in your customer's shoes. As soon as you're done typing, click outside the text box, and then it'll show up. Yep, with respect, I think you may have clicked out a little too soon. That's okay. Hey, what's that squiggly? Michelle, she's drawing. She clicked on draw. This is part of the learning facilitating online. Yeah, I love using a whiteboard because you can grab, yeah, once people understand, empowered, awesome. Yeah, click on text box, type in the text box anywhere on the white surface. Collaboration, good. Encourage, there we go. We're getting it. So for your business, this is a great exercise to go through. If you haven't created values for your organization, or if you haven't revisited them in a while, that's a very important thing to have organization that stands the test of time. So let's move on to the fairly. Very good. Thanks, Terry. All right, let's move on. And I love to use Post-it notes and just brainstorm whatever I am contemplating, like that question. All right, next. So the mission statement is the next thing. And there's a lot written about the mission statement. So Stephen Covey did it really good justice with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Clement Stone, who is a mentor of Jack Canfield, as well as Napoleon Hill, this is what he had to say about mission. When you discover your mission, you'll feel its demand. It'll fill you with enthusiasm and a burning desire to get to work on it. And these are the ingredients that I found. If you can answer these questions in your business, you'll understand what your business is in or about, and your customers will understand what it's in or about. And at ShiftCo, we also go through creating what it is that your statement, your passion statement, whatever you want to call it, that really gets clear. So number 1 is incorporating some of your values, the behaviors that your organization stands for. Number 2 is what we just did as well, which is I put your purpose in the heart of your mission statement. 3, what services do you provide? The important roles that you provide as a company. Who does your organization serve, and what results do you desire? And I just wanted to read a mission statement. So anyone drink Starbucks? Starbucks, anyone? So Starbucks has an incredible mission statement. This is what it says: to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. I think that's just amazing. You don't even hear coffee in there, just a cup. But anyway, yeah, mission statement takes time, but when you can get it so that people clearly understand what your organization stands for, it makes all the difference in the world. And put that on your website, put it out in all your materials so that people get you. I'm going to go on to the second one. The second phase is to organize. And through clarifying and organizing, this is building the potential energy, the water behind the dam. It's increasing your commitment as you're getting more vested in this idea. And it's about really developing the belief and visualizing, seeing that picture of what your organization will look like in its full working order. And then that includes the vision, understanding what goals that you're going to be moving forward on. And so let me just drill down a little bit more on that. So a vision is your desired future state as an organization. And I love what Napoleon Hill, he said, whatever you can conceive and believe you can achieve. And that vision, when you can see such a clear picture of what your organization is going to look like in its full desired future state, it really gets every cell of our bodies vibrating. And I want to share just a vision statement that I really love from a breakfast place that I have been going to since the 80s. And it's called T.C. Eggington's. I'm just going to share a short burst that they put on a little rack card that they give to all their servers, all their employees, and it's part of their training. And I want you to just picture this place. T.C. Eggington's Brunchery, what a difference. An exciting opportunity to enjoy an extra special eating experience for young and old alike. Whether over friendly, light conversation of business that starts with the crack of dawn, that's one of the menu items. T.C. Eggington's is a delicious way to start your day. Our original recipes are prepared from scratch every day with only the freshest ingredients, cooked to your order exclusively in our kitchen for your pleasure, and served up with style. T.C. Eggington's is as fresh as a smile, warm and homelike. And they go on a little bit more to just give a real amazing experience, a visual of what it's like to eat in that place. So have you taken time to look at what your vision is as an organization? It's a really great exercise. And here's what this all does to this point. And so the purpose, the values, the mission that we create along with the vision, it creates what I call the cone of influence. In essence, this is what's most important for your organization. This is where you can have the greatest impact to the world. And these little stars that you see outside of this cone, this is what it really does. What I love the most about strategic planning, those stars outside the cone, those are things I shouldn't even entertain as a business because they're not going to get me where I want to go. They're not important to me. They're things I can say no to easily. All these stars that are within this cone of influence, these are things that will get you in the direction of what you want to go. And I love this visual because it's all about focusing our attention on our intention. And that's what being a creator is. It's really creating, no matter what is happening in the world, what it is that you feel is going to be the greatest impact for your business. And I'm going to show you a little bit about goals, objectives, and strategies. When we set them in alignment with our purpose, values, mission, and vision, then we're moving in the direction we want to, and we can create action plans so that everything we're implementing in the present moment of now is making a difference on our business. And this is just a visual. And, you know, if you haven't done this, it might look pretty complex, but it's as simple as this. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so it's breaking down this big idea that you have into smaller bite-sized pieces. And so as you go further over to the right, you identify your goal areas. So for instance, I work with Michelle on demand generation, and that helped me to focus on a particular goal. And then that, and that goal, if it's a big goal, I break it down into objectives. If the objective is big, I break it down into strategies and so forth, into tactics. That's just how it flows. It's like cascading, so that you're just not in overwhelm, just breaking things down into more bite-sized pieces. And that takes us to moving into the third phase, which is act. And this is where it takes a leap of faith. This is where we make a decision to move forward. And in that decision, we start building more conviction. And for me, commitment with action yields conviction. And so this is also where kinetic energy starts. We can start to see things happen. Where on the left side, through the first two phases, it was potential energy, not a lot going on. And as Terry shared, it's important to get into action. Even if you don't have all the pieces of the puzzles that you would develop in number two, you still jump forward on what it is that you know, and you learn as you go. And so this is about expecting things to move in your direction, expecting things that you don't know about yet to manifest themselves so that you can then take action on those. And it's developing that knowing that this is going to be realized. And it's here that you develop your action plan. And I'll share some of the elements of that. This is where it really feels great because you can feel all this energy happening, but it's getting into it that sometimes doesn't feel so great. So I want to talk about this. So went to Disneyland when my kids were little. And so this child right here in the front, this is my youngest. He was about 7 years old that time. That's Joe. This is my wife, Lynn. And then my other son, Dominic, he was about 9 that time. And this is me right here and some other crazies behind us. And so we went to Disneyland. We went on Splash Mountain and we got in this line. And as we're getting closer, and if you've been to Disneyland, Disney World, you don't even know you're in a line because you got all these little characters that are there entertaining you as you're going. And as we're getting closer and closer to getting on this log, my son Dominic is getting a little more nervous because he can see these logs going up this little track, going up higher, and then they disappear in this little tunnel. And then up in that tunnel, you know, there's little happy little songs going on and that as you're going through this little channel. Well, he got nervous. And so he said, Dad, I got to go to the restroom. And he left. And he left us in this line. And so the three of us went first, and then we came out and came back, and we shared all the excitement of what happened. And so then he had enough courage to go on it with us the second time. And so we go on up, we go up in the little channel in the tunnel, and all these little happy little characters singing songs. And then we get to the edge of this little drop off, and then this log drops off into the great abyss, into this fog down below, and splash. And what do you think the first thing is Dominic said after we got to the bottom? I want to go again, right? So he loves roller coasters to this day. He goes on the highest and the scariest, and it was all a matter of getting through that panic to get on the other side of excitement. And here's why that's important. So in panic, our body generates a chemical called cortisol. Cortisol actually decreases our lifespan. It is actually a major thing that they look for cancer. Whereas if we're go take something as excitement, and it's just a matter of perspective. Do we see it as panic? Do we hate roller coasters, or do we see it as excitement? Because we love roller coasters. If we see it as excitement, there's a different chemical that gets created. It's called interleukin-2. Interleukin-2 actually is a chemical that will increase our lifespan, and it really rejuvenates our body. And so that is important to keep in mind. If you're in panic about something, do whatever you need to do to shift it to excitement. It probably means jumping into action on something. And it's all a matter in this third phase of focusing on what you want, pointing towards what's most satisfying to you. And if something distracts you and you're feeling some anxiety or doubt, and so you remember that light board, you remember the dimmer with the resistance. Well, whenever we feel doubt, whenever we feel fear, whenever we feel anxious, that's the dimmer switch within us. When we can dissipate that to find something more satisfying, then it actually shines our light brighter into the world. All right, and then the thing to create there are action plans in phase 3. You know, identify the tasks the best you know of them. And I know Terry's big on this. You know, identify the tasks, schedule the tasks, get to work on those tasks every single day. Consistency is the key. Schedule them, and then assign all the resources, whether staff, equipment, materials, money. And that takes us to number 4. And so number 4 is realize. And this is where you get to see all sorts of things happening. This is about celebrating as things are unfailing themselves. It's trusting and allowing that things are going to happen, even though some strategies maybe aren't working as well as others. Celebrate what is working, because that's an important energy to keep going. And as far as the when goes, timing is everything. And so as you're moving forward on something, some things might be the right time and they're starting to pop. Other things, maybe not quite yet, but you just keep nudging them along. The important thing about this 4th phase is monitor, measure, and refine. Think of this action plan as clay. It's not concrete. It's something that you can mold as you're learning more, as you're measuring things. And these are just some things you might consider measuring. It could be sales growth. It could be number of users. If it's your website, for me, it'll be the learning management system. Number of members for ShiftCo, customer satisfaction, employee satisfaction, those types of things. Select what it is you want to measure, and then celebrate what's really working. And the key is to be patient, to persevere, to just approach everything with a sense of purity. Purity means you're living your purpose, you're living your values, you're making your vision and your mission come alive. Stay focused on that. There's always going to be things that are going to require patience, and it's a matter of just sticking with it and adjusting as you go. We're getting close to the end here, but I just wanted to share some amazing work that was done by a doctor, a scientist named Dr. Masaru Omoto. And he wrote several books. The first book was Hidden Messages in Water. And this is actually a crystal that he photographed just forming in a little petri dish. So he would freeze these crystals in these little dishes, but each dish he would put different words on. And so this particular dish had love and gratitude as the words. And he noticed in some of them he put negative words in. So I will kill you, you put on one. And as he photographed each of these, he found that the most beautiful crystals were the ones that had like love and gratitude, that things that really light us up inside. And the reason this is significant and what he shared was, you remember what percentage our body is of water? What is it, around 70, 80% our body, and our brains are 80 to 90% water? He said that was significant because when we can have our bodies vibrate, let's say with gratitude, an attitude of gratitude, then that radiates out from us. It's that magnetic field that I demonstrated with the magnets. It actually increases that magnetic field around us. So you've probably gone into a room and you could tell the people that are really uplifting, like Michelle there with balloons behind her, the people that really light up a room, you can feel that. And that affects everyone else around you. And that's why the values that we talked about, the purpose that you've got in your heart, when we radiate those, then we are going to be generating that type of energy. And when we are in a state of gratitude about what's happening in our business, what's growing, what's evolving, then that is going to make a difference as well. So that's the 4 phases of the C.O.A.R model. And as you go through these phases, it's important to do them in sequence, because if you jump, say, from phase 1, clarify, to phase 3, act, you haven't built enough commitment until you get the pieces of the puzzle so that you're feeling confident about the vision for moving forward. So I encourage you, take the time to go in order from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And so a lot of what we covered today is covered in my Strategic Planning 101 on the C.O.A.R. So those of you that are members, it has a little more rich information in those. And that was also a live presentation I did right before the COVID time. And then this right here is the 12 steps of the strategic planning process that in Strategic Planning 202, I cover step by step and show you how to do it, give you some examples of how to facilitate it with your organization. So there's a lot of rich information in that Strategic Planning 202 class. We also cover in there how you can get input from the bottom of the organization up and provide direction from the top of the organization down, get everyone involved, everyone engaged, so that everyone's got a vested interest in the success of the organization. In essence, their whole bodies, their whole being is vibrating with the principles that you set forward. And so that's it for me. I'm just gonna share. If you have any questions that you have of me, you can go ahead and email me. And Terry, if you can just type my email in the chat, that'd be great. Then for C.O.A.R members, remind you, you can see my courses on the C.O.A.R. I've also got a problem solving course that use the C.O.A.R model as well. And then for guests, yeah, feel free to attend the free webinars that Terry offers with other speakers as well. And then you can also learn more on the C.O.A.R website as well as the YouTube page. So I'll just say thank you and take any questions you've got.
Who has the first question?
What questions do you have?
I have one if you're comfortable.
Yep.
Oh, I think my screen just froze.
You're good now.
Okay, perfect. at what age did you start to realize that personal development was a game changer for you?
Oh my God. So yeah, for me, it started, my actual study started in when I was in college. And I actually created a business. And at that time, you remember Amway. So that was a big multi-level marketing thing back then. But what I loved about it was their principles. So they had tapes, they had motivational tapes. Back then it was Zig Ziglar and people like that, books that they recommended for us. And so that's when I really started on my journey. But even before then, in college, while I was studying to be an engineer, I was taking religious studies courses, anthropology courses. There was always this, for me, fascination with the power of the human spirit and what people could accomplish. I would take off on my bicycle and I would just take off for a couple 100 miles, just load the back of my bike with some food and some, just lightweight. I didn't need any money to travel. And so for me, this understanding of what I could accomplish personally, and even being growing up in a welfare home where my mother was on public assistance, my father had left before I could remember, when I was one or so, and just watching what she had to do to survive, I wanted something different. And so I just started studying what is it that the masters do. And I've enjoyed doing that ever since.
Great question. Liz, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi, Ray, that was
Hi.
so cool. So helpful.
Thanks, Liz.
For somebody who's like duct taped her company together for 7 years with safety pins and tape that I found around, I have lists and I have softwares and I have things organized over here and over there and over there. How would you, any general advice on how to start a strategic plan when you have all these disparate softwares and things in different places? It feels overwhelming a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the beautiful thing about that is you've got all the pieces. And so you've got the pieces, it's now bringing them together and what is the most comfortable for you. So I like using a mind map software called MindJet. I mean, there's all sorts of them out there and there's free ones. I think Zoom just released one that they are now going to bring to market. But so I like using storyboarding, bringing all the pieces together. I can push a button and turn it into a Word document if I want to. So I like using a combination where I have some that are electronic, virtual types of things and some that are in paper. I still like a paper planner. I like checking things off as I accomplish them. There's a degree of satisfaction in that. But it's finding what it is you love and taking those pieces and bring them together. Even with ShiftGo, as I've gone through the different pathways, I've got a notebook and I type up the notes and I bring them into a report and they're all now joining together. So demand generation, differentiation, and now I'm working on the growth sprint. All these are forming a new complete mosaic, complete picture. Bring them together.
Great question. Other questions? Well, if you
I have a question, Ray. As someone who has kind of shifted their focus on like their ideal clients, do you recommend changing? Like, I mean, I know that my personal vision has stayed the same throughout my journey of being an entrepreneur, and some of how and who I serve, let's be honest, has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do you encourage or even recommend that someone blends that as the business evolves? Because as we stay in business longer, our ideal client refines and changes. So
Mm-hmm.
what is your recommendation around that?
Yeah, so you remember I said, keep it clay, keep your action plan clay. I mean that for the whole strategic plan.
Okay.
As something happens, like who would have expected a pandemic where I've got to now worry about getting online more. And so I had to massage everything. I massaged my website. When I was working with you, I massaged that. When I was working with Kevin on the differentiation.
Yep.
So as something significant happens in your business, so let's say it's with a new set of clients, a new direction, a new trajectory, incorporate that and let it expand and feel free to massage it, consider it flexible, It's just like clay.
Thank you. Yeah, because so few, I don't think that's expressed enough, that we get to mold and bend, just like we evolved, our business evolved, our clients evolved, and it's okay if it could change month after month. Just be willing to adapt accordingly. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, especially this day and age, things are changing so quickly. And if you're in the tech field at all, even in the health and wellness field, those things are changing. And as they change, just keep massaging, molding. So you're moving in the direction that you want to.
Other questions?
Going once, twice.
Well, if you haven't checked out Ray's courses, please, please, please do that. They're phenomenal. And Ray, one of the things that you said, I typed it in the chat because it was brilliant. It was commitment with action creates conviction. And man, like, quote that and put your name all over it. Brilliant. And I wanted to know if we could invite you back because SHIFCO measures its success based on whether or not our members' businesses are growing. And that's the only thing that's acceptable to us. So we've slowed down growth to make sure members' success is occurring. We've sped up growth, and then, we found something else that didn't quite work and we slowed down growth again. So we're not driven by how many members we have. We're driven by whether or not those members are growing their business in a demonstrable way. And one of the things that we've noticed from researching is that there's a pod, if you will, of members that can be unfocused and their activities don't really match their intention. And then others that they can allow fear, uncertainty, and doubt to stand in the way. And I would imagine that some of the tools that you have could be put together in such a way that we could really, really hone in on that to really bring the resolute goal of conviction in whatever your plans are and whatever your business is. Does that sound like fun to you?
Oh, it does. Absolutely.
And I think we could even create a pathway just for that would bring some of the demand and differentiation together with that way to get it rolling.
Yeah. The integration is not easy. So you go through the pathway and then, okay, now the hard part.
So I'll follow up with you on that, and we'll put some things together for our members. So thanks everybody for joining. And for those of you that couldn't make it, we'll send the recording out. It will also be placed on our YouTube page where all of our public training exists. And as always, we're starting some live events. So we're going to do a live event in Dallas. For those of you in Dallas, that will be week after next. And then in June, we're going to be live in New York, and hopefully Toronto shortly thereafter, and then move to the West Coast. So hope to meet you guys in person. I got to see Michelle this weekend. It was wonderful. Last weekend, it was so cool. So we hope to get to meet everybody in person. And if there's ever anything that SHIFCO can do, please let me know, or the member TLC team. And you've got Ray's contact information in the chat. Ray's the kind of person, he's always willing to help and answer questions. So again, thank you, Ray, so much for joining us. And thank you to all of you who attended today and who are listening in at a later date. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you for your
Thank you, Terry. Bye.